6 months pregnant, she built her log cabin alone, until a surprise from a lonely cowboy transform. Emily stood beneath the sprawling Montana sky, her hammer striking wood with determined precision. 6 months pregnant and alone, she was determined to carve out her own sanctuary, each log a defiant declaration against the suffocating expectations of her estranged family. Her mother had always hovered in the shadows of her ambitions, a reminder of struggles to escape. But this was different.
This time, Emily wouldn't falter. This time she would build something real, a home where she could prove to herself she wouldn't replicate the weight of her childhood. As she kneels to adjust the placement of the latest log, a smattering of doubt thickens the air. Her family, scattered by her decision to have a child by herself, loomed like silhouettes in her mind. They would never understand the fire she felt to rise above the whispers. But pushing through, she took a deep breath, focused on her growing belly rather than her mom's disapproving gaze. Every swing of the hammer was an act of rebellion, something tangible rising up beneath the vast open sky, a reflection of her independence. Yet, with each nail driven in, Emily felt the burden of solitude enveloping her. The physical labor had become a metaphorical battleground. She wrestled with her frailty. What if she couldn't do this? What did doing it alone even mean? She paused, her heart heavy with the weight of impending motherhood. Was she brave or foolish? Was she building her dreams, or just walls to trap herself in a lonely existence? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The sun dipped low, casting shadows that seemed to echo her doubts. How had she let it come to this? A single mother in a town that relished gossip. Would folks talk behind her back? Or worse, in front of her? Pregnant and unwed, defying social norms, something her family would have scorned. The whispers felt tangible, clawing at her resolve, dynamically pressing down as if they could crack her fortitude. It was only a matter of time before the townsfolk knew she was relying on a man, a cowboy with a reputation that could tarnish her already fragile outlook. As if the universe answered her turmoil, a surprise emerged on the horizon. Jake, a solitary figure on horseback. A local recluse known for his sullen demeanor and disdain for community chatter, his presence stirred a familiar unease. When he offered to help her with a broken beam, she hesitated. Was she inviting judgment into her home in the shape of a man who might carry the same secrets and burdens of solitude that she bore? Yet a flicker of desperation pushed her towards him. It was a welcome distraction. In that moment of vulnerability, Emily felt an unwelcome flicker of connection, a burgeoning bond grounded in shared battles. But the weight of her choices loomed in her mind, and uncertainty shrouded her heart. Questions spiraled, clawing for release. Would their camaraderie stave off loneliness, or would it deepen her isolation? As she hammered away at the logs, anxiety churned within her, intensifying the fear she had long dared to silence. Could she brave the impending storm of judgment, or was she merely creating another obstacle to conquer? As their fates intertwined, the cabin remained half-finished, mirroring her unresolved self. And as the sun set behind the mountains, she felt a truth brewing within. A reckoning awaited her, poised to challenge everything she thought she had built. The sky darkened, a canopy of stars spilling over the horizon as night crept in, but Emily's resolve flickered like a lone beacon. She watched Jake approach, his rugged form stark against the backdrop of towering pines. He didn't look like the reassuring presence she'd hoped for. Instead, a twinge of fear coursed through her. What would this man see when he looked at her? Would he view her as a resilient woman forging her path, or merely a wounded bird trying to escape her cage? Jake stood silently for a moment, the faint glimmer of moonlight illuminating his features, revealing an honesty that made her heart race. His hands, calloused yet gentle, felt more like a promise of unguarded strength rather than a harbinger of judgment. The air shifted as anticipation mingled with apprehension, a dance between vulnerability and courage. Emily couldn't decide if she craved his company to erase the silence surrounding her, or if she feared his presence would amplify her insecurities. "Need some help?" he asked, his voice low and gruff, yet somehow soothing amidst the chaos in her mind. Each word felt like a tentative truce, and she sensed the walls she'd meticulously constructed around her heart wavering. She hesitated, the weight of pride mingling with a more profound need for connection. It felt absurd to consider allowing someone else in when she had skillfully stitched her survival mantra. Do it alone. Yet the mere thought of companionship stirred something dormant within her, an instinctive yearning for support in her growing isolation. "Yeah, I could use some," she finally replied, each word a release, a surrender to the possibility of unshared burdens. Their hands moved together around the wooden beam, the rhythm of their labor sinking like a heartbeat, a tangible testament to shared purpose. Throughout the evening, as they worked, Jake revealed little snippets of his life. How he had inherited the land long before sorrow had built invisible boundaries around his heart. Each shared moment unveiled not only his pain, but also the resilience beneath it. She discovered he had faced loss, too, loss that manifested in silent nights and the weight of unfulfilled dreams, just like her. With every hammer strike, her guard lowered, exposing the insecurities she'd shielded for so long. "You know," she said, the words spilling out before she could intervene, "I thought I had to do this alone, that self-reliance was my only option. But maybe there's strength in letting someone in." His gaze met hers, understanding mingled with a hint of surprise. "It takes bravery to accept help, Emily. Sometimes it's harder to trust than to carry your burden." His honesty resonated like a bell, reverberating through her chest. In that moment, she faced a crossroads. Could she abandon her ingrained self-sufficiency in exchange for the raw, unpredictable comfort of camaraderie? As the last of the daylight faded, she felt an unsettling truth rise to the surface, a fear that the deeper she let Jake into her life, the more vulnerable she'd become. Yet she also realized she craved this connection, her heart yearning to feel less isolated amidst impending motherhood. But just as clarity washed over her, shadows of her past loomed near, the echoes of her family's disdain and the expectation that she would flounder. Would her willingness to accept Jake's help expose her to the very critiques she had sought to escape? Emotions surged, as strong yet confusing as the winds which whipped through the trees. An unexpected noise broke the tension, a sound in the distance that made them both pause, an ominous rustling that hinted at an approaching storm, both literally and metaphorically. "Emily," Jake whispered, eyeing the tree line that was shrouded now in darkness. "I think we should get inside. There might be more than just bad weather out here tonight." Her heart raced at the thought of what lurked beyond the comforting glow of the cabin, an embodiment of both her internal and external fears. The storm inside her threatened to collide with the one outside, each carrying the potential for upheaval. A choice loomed before her: retreat into the shadows of solitude once more, or face what awaited her head-on, storms and all. In that charged moment, Emily inhaled deeply, feeling tension coil tightly in her chest, whispering to herself that the next step might just redefine her future. As darkness enveloped the cabin, her eyes met Jake's, unspoken words hanging in the air between them, the promise of unveiling truths deeper than they had begun to explore. It was the beginning of a new chapter, both thrilling and terrifying. and Emily had no idea how it would change her life forever. The wind howled as Emily and Jake stepped inside the cabin, the door closing firmly against the encroaching night. Instantly, the atmosphere shifted. Wooden walls, glowing embers in the fireplace, and the heady scent of burning cedar wrapped around them like a protective shroud. "Let's get a fire going," Jake suggested, shaking off the chill that clung to him. Emily nodded, but her mind buzzed with uncertainty. She could feel the flame of vulnerability flickering beneath her skin, battling against her instinct to maintain her emotional distance. As Jake moved deliberately through the small space, gathering kindling and logs, Emily took the opportunity to observe him. There was something about his quiet confidence that unsettled her. It was the type of strength she once admired in herself. Self-sufficient, resilient, unapologetically ambitious. But now, as she stood on the precipice of motherhood and the chaos of uncertainties, that self-image lay scattered at her feet. "Is everything all right?" Jake paused, glancing back at her with a hint of concern. She wanted to dismiss his worry, to shake off the mounting doubts swirling in her mind, but the lump in her throat betrayed her. "I'm just thinking," she said finally, her voice unsteady. "About what?" He stood there, persistent yet patient, a buoy in the storm of her thoughts. "It's just, how do you do it? How do you keep moving forward?" The weight of her words pooled heavily between them, revealing the depth of her internal struggle. Jake moved closer, his dark eyes focused on hers, amplifying the honesty radiating from him. "You don't have a choice. Life doesn't pause for fear or uncertainty. You find a way to keep going, or you stay stuck." The truth of his statement struck her. How many times had she stifled her own growth with fear? As she faced the loneliness of impending motherhood, encapsulated by her own doubts, she grasped the significance of Jake's words. This was an opportunity to learn how to balance independence with acceptance, a step towards reconciliation with her past. As she assisted him with the fire, Emily felt a shift in her energy. The act became meditative, the momentary flame igniting hope within her. For the first time, the turbulence of her insecurities felt less like a concrete wall and more like a cloud of fog that could eventually clear. In the follow-up silence, she took the leap, testing the waters of their growing connection. "I want to trust you, Jake, but there's so much I'm scared of." His brow furrowed, but he remained steadfast. "You don't have to share everything at once. Just take one step at a time." Those words sunk deeply into her consciousness. Could she let down her guard and allow those steps to define her future? Taking a deep breath, she shifted the conversation to Jake's past, probing deeper into the man who stood beside her. "What about your family?" Jake's expression hardened slightly, shadows passing over his features. "My father passed away when I was younger. My mother, well, she was more focused on her sadness than on living her life. I learned early that I couldn't rely on anyone but myself," he admitted, a raw edge in his voice. The similarity in their backgrounds jolted her. Just as she'd learned solitude, Jake carried the weight of his family's grief. Their ability to falter left him with an understanding of independence that felt achingly familiar. As they continued talking and cracking jokes to fortify the growing bond between them, a sense of optimism flowed through her veins. With each moment in Jake's presence, she felt a breakthrough leading her closer to a fuller acceptance of her circumstances, and perhaps to his friendship. Yet the uneasiness still nagged at her. Would this budding connection ultimately propel or entrap her? At the stroke of every joy came a shadow, a reminder of the criticisms that had accompanied her past. Just as she felt ready to dive deeper into the conversation, an unsettling sound echoed from outside. A rustling, more pronounced this time. Jake's eyes darted toward the window, tension spiraling around them again. "I'll check it out," he said, his voice steadier than her racing heart. Desperation and fear collided within her, urging her to make a choice: trust him or shout for him to come back. What if the very storm she feared appeared outside, foreshadowing dangerous encounters that could threaten the tenuous thread of growth she felt? With a surge of determination, she opened her mouth to call him back, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she stood frozen, confronting yet another terrifying truth. Maybe stepping into the light meant facing the storm that awaited beyond the cabin walls. As she watched him slip into the night, a single thought took hold. The time had come to face the shadows of her past, both within and beyond. What she encountered next could either solidify the progress she'd made or unravel everything she was beginning to rebuild. Emily stood at the window, her hands pressed against the cool glass, heart pulsing in tandem with the encroaching darkness outside. Shadows danced menacingly along the edge of the tree line, the unknown forming shapes that felt both imposing and foreboding. She had just begun to unravel the intricacies of vulnerability, not only with Jake, but within herself. And yet now, the moment he stepped outside brought back all the old instincts to retreat, to close off whatever connections she was starting to form. She couldn't give in. The weight of the situation creaked loudly in the silence of the cabin, scratching at her resolve. A gust of wind rattled the window, and fear nipped at her heels like a lost child. If she couldn't embrace this moment of uncertainty, how could she prepare herself for motherhood? For the challenges and joys that lay ahead? No. She wouldn't allow herself to spiral into doubt, not now when she was finally finding clarity. Standing alone in the flickering light of the fire, Emily turned her back to the window and focused on the warmth that enveloped her. She reached for the kindling and logs Jake had just left. The crackling flames became her mantra, a symbol of her growing strength and independence. What about the shadows that haunted her past? She had convinced herself they were not merely external, but bore deeply within her as well. The choices she'd made, pushing people away, allowing hurt to fester, had created barriers that constricted her ability to grow. She needed to confront that reluctance head-on. As she stoked the fire, feeling its warmth wrap around her like an affirmation, her thoughts turned back to Jake. His ability to move forward despite his own pain was a lesson waiting for her. Trust wasn't just about interdependence. It was an act of courage, one she had all but forgotten in the wake of her fears. Could she adopt that strength, even if for a moment? Taking tentative steps toward the door, she paused, assessing her own trepidation. The chill seeping into the cabin felt like her self-doubt trying to creep back in. With every deep breath she took, she prepared herself. If she wanted to truly embrace her emerging identity, she had to step out of her emotional confines to seek out the unpredictable world that awaited. Pushing the door open, the cool night air rushed in, cutting through the warm cocoon she had fashioned inside. She called for Jake, but the words felt stifled, tangled in the cobwebs of her anxious thoughts. Instead, she took a step outside, hoping the fresh air would carry away the remnants of trepidation that clung to her. The world felt expansive and raw beneath the expanse of stars, and as she took a few more steps away from the cabin, she saw Jake, his figure silhouetted against the glow of the moonlight, crouched beside a patch of leaves. Her heart swelled. This was her choice to reach out when the temptation to shrink back was overwhelming. "Jake," she called softly, the sound of her voice unexpected and foreign in the quiet. He turned sharply, the tension visible in his posture loosening slightly. "I didn't want to leave you alone," he said, a concern lacing his tone. "I just needed to be outside," Emily replied, feeling braver than she had a moment before. "I want to understand how to face things, instead of running away." A glimmer of recognition crossed his face. "You're doing it right now, Em. Just being here, confronting uncertainty, is a step. It's all right to be scared." There it was again. The gentle validation she craved.
but often failed to acknowledge. Steeling herself, she moved closer, the hesitance in her limbs giving way slightly as she faced him fully. "I want to learn to trust, both you and myself."
The atmosphere shifted from anxiety to something productive, charged by both her admission and the potential for connection. But as she stood there, summoning the courage to articulate her desire for that bond, another noise fractured the stillness. A snapping branch echoed in the woods. Jake's smile vanished, replaced by a look of alert focus. "Stay close," he instructed, scanning the surroundings. An inexplicable tension coiled within her as dread rippled through her thoughts. What lay ahead was still uncertain, but Emily realized she would not step back this time. She would confront whatever came from the shadows, together with Jake. Yet the instinct to protect her fragile growth battled against her desire to face what was looming, and Emily recognized this moment would test her like nothing before. As they stood together, prepared to confront the unknown, Emily stifled her instinct to flee. She had already taken the first steps back toward vulnerability. Now, she would have to trust that it wouldn't lead to her undoing. With reality creeping in, she found herself longing to know exactly how deeply she could embrace this moment of uncertainty before it unraveled again, and what shadow the night might cast on the path ahead. Would it bring clarity, or further obscurity? The stakes had never felt higher. Emily's senses sharpened at the rustle of leaves. The quiet of the night had receded into a muted chaos, and her heart raced more from trepidation rather than the cold that nipped at her exposed skin. With Jake by her side, she felt both emboldened and terrified, a contradiction that ignited her instincts. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, barely audible over the pounding of her heart. The shadows elongated around them, the weight of anticipation settling heavily in the air. "Yeah," Jake replied, his voice low and steady, yet the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes mirrored her own. He scanned the thicket, muscles taut as if ready to spring into action. This instinct to protect was something Emily recognized as intrinsic. She could see how it conflicted with her own growing determination to face whatever loomed before her. As the snapping of twigs grew closer, Emily's thoughts spiraled. Was she prepared to confront whatever emerged from the darkness? Could she truly allow herself to trust, both in Jake and in her newfound capacity for resilience? Each question built upon the last, a construction of ambition and doubt. A shadow broke through the underbrush, and she recoiled instinctively, her body frozen in a moment of vulnerability. Jake stepped slightly in front of her, a protective barrier. The figure stepped into the moonlight, and her breath caught. It was a deer, wide-eyed and startled. It bounded away, leaping into the woods, leaving behind an echo of tranquility now laced with uncertainty. Emily exhaled, tension releasing like a drawn bow. "Just a deer." Her voice caught a hint of laughter tinged with relief, but the mirth quickly faded. What was it that truly unsettled her? Was it just the unknown threat of nature, or was it the deeper unease of confronting her fears head-on? "Can we just take a moment?" Jake said, his voice softer now, relaxing into their surroundings. It felt tense there for a minute. He stepped backward, inviting her to reclaim some space. She nodded, grounding herself with the cool breeze and the natural rhythm of the forest. The experience reminded her that confronting fear, be it from the unknown or from within, was vital for her growth. "I didn't mean to be jumpy. With everything happening, I'm still learning how to navigate this," Emily admitted. Jake met her gaze, an unwavering support reflected back in his amber eyes. "You're doing it, Emily. Learning means feeling it. Every fear, every doubt. You're here, and that's what counts." The warmth of his acknowledgement stirred something deep within her. The shadows that had once evoked panic now felt more manageable. Could she dig deeper, uncovering more of what she was truly capable of? This was the moment she needed to strengthen her resolve. I've been avoiding so much in my life, she confessed, her heart beginning to beat steadily in a new rhythm. But standing here, I realize it's not about the fear itself, but how I choose to react to it. His expression softened, as if her words resonated with him. Exactly. It takes courage to face uncertainties, especially as you prepare for motherhood. You'll have to adapt and grow in ways you can't even imagine yet. Here it was. Encouragement that intertwined with her burgeoning courage, a symbiotic relationship that both terrified and inspired her. It pushed her toward the precipice of change, where she might leap into the unfamiliar and discover her own strength. Emily breathed deeper, anchoring herself in the present. The shadows around them still loomed, but something shifted within. She understood she could explore this path instead of cower from it. Each moment was a chance to cultivate trust in herself and in her capacity for growth. Rather than fleeing or folding under pressure, she could choose to stand strong. I want to push myself to embrace every ounce of this journey, she said firmly, smiling at Jake. If I can face fear here, among the shadows, I can do it anywhere. But as they stood there, settling into this newfound understanding, the forest fell into silence once more, and the shadows deepened ominously. A distant growl resonated quietly, putting them both on high alert once again. "Stay close," Jake said again, but this time it carried a weight of urgency. Emily's determination flickered. She had stepped toward her fears, but now another challenge loomed ahead, one that could require more than just courage. Would her resolve hold strong against the encroaching night? Perhaps the shadows weren't just outside, but rooted deep within the folds of her psyche, waiting for her next move. What might she discover about herself as they ventured further into the dark? Emily's heart thundered in her chest, a visceral reminder of both fear and excitement. The distant growl dissolved the fragile peace they had just established. It demanded her attention, pulling her deeper into the fray of the night and into her own tangled emotions. "Jake," she whispered, a mix of apprehension and determination stealing her resolve. While her body remained tense, she found herself questioning everything about that moment. The growls weren't just a threat. They were representative of the turmoil inside her, the uncertainty that accompanied impending motherhood and her lifelong quest for independence. She glanced at Jake, who had resumed scanning their surroundings, his body a fortress of strength. Deep down, she felt a mix of affinity and frustration. Did he see her as merely someone needing protection, or did he recognize her burgeoning strength? The desire to prove herself burned hot. "We should investigate," she said, her voice firmer than she anticipated. "Are you serious?" Jake shot back, incredulity mixing with concern. "That could be dangerous. It's a growl, not a dinosaur," she replied, attempting humor to lighten the tension. But her mind raced with thoughts about the need to confront every specter of doubt, whether internal or external. "Maybe you're right," he conceded, but still shielded her from danger with his presence. They stepped forward, cautious yet resolute, in pursuit of the unknown. With each step deeper into the woods, the murky shadows took on various forms, each one reminiscent of her fears. They weren't just creatures lurking behind trees. They were uncertainties about her capabilities, her readiness for the changes ahead, and her ability to forge a new life alone. A rustle emerged from the bushes to their right, and Emily held her breath, mirroring Jake's stance of readiness. But instead of the expected chaos of confrontation, out bounded a small dog, scruffy and wild-eyed, likely lost. It paused for a moment, surveying them with a cautious tilt of its head, and then approached, its tail wagging hesitantly. Emily's heart melted for a moment. The ridiculousness of the situation struck her like a bolt of lightning. Here they were, bracing for a fight against something feral, when faced with something rather innocent instead. She knelt and extended her hand. "Come here, little buddy. You seem lost," she cooed, watching the dog inch closer, sniffing the air. The simplicity of the scene pirouetted around her internal whirlwind, a reminder that sometimes fear and fearsome beasts were not the only things in the dark. Simplicity could lurk, too. "What are you doing?" Jake asked, his voice low again. "I don't know," she admitted, feeling a warmth blooming in her chest. "Maybe part of me is realizing that while the unknown can be frightening, it can also be unexpectedly sweet." The dog finally bounded into her arms, a spirit of innocence embracing her. The moment felt authentic, a balm against the layers of anxiety coiling within her. She exchanged a glance with Jake, whose worry transformed into something softer, something like acceptance. "You're beginning to understand," he said thoughtfully, an advisor now not just out of duty, but out of admiration. "It's about facing those layers, uncovering what's really hiding behind them." Emily looked down at the scruffy dog, its tiny body nestled against her. It was a reminder of resilience, of life's capacity for adaptation, much like her own. "I want to help it. If this dog can survive out here, maybe I can face whatever's waiting for me beyond this moment." With the decision blooming, she stood up, a sense of purpose galvanizing her resolve. "We can take it home, get it back to safety." The idea ignited a flicker of clarity amidst the murky fears swirling in her mind. Jake nodded, impressed. "You know it won't be easy, right? You might face challenges along the way." "And that's the whole point," she replied, eyes sparkling with newfound fire. "It's not about whether it's easy or hard. It's about embracing the process, however exhausting it may be. Just like preparing for motherhood." With the dog now nestled against her chest, they began their retreat. Emily's purposeful steps on the uneven ground didn't just take her away from the threat of the unknown. They embarked on a journey towards self-discovery. But shadows still crept at the edge of her consciousness, waiting as she brushed past them. What other obstacles awaited her as she ventured into uncharted territory? She felt a growing flame of excitement for what lay ahead, even as an ominous sense of foreboding whispered through the trees. Could this small, scrappy animal be a catalyst for her next revelation, or merely a distraction as she continued to wrestle with the most primal fears, of failing, of not being enough? Beyond the encircling trees, further complications loomed, challenges intertwined with growth that she had yet to confront. As they squeezed through the last thicket, Emily paused, listening for growls that may arise again, her heart pounding with potential. Would her new companion shift her focus and provide unexpected insight? Alternatively, would it lead her deeper into the very shadows she tried to illuminate? The true adventure was just beginning. Emily adjusted her grip on the scruffy dog cradled in her arms as they emerged from the dense thicket. The night air felt different, charged with potential. Each step back to the car felt imbued with urgency, as if the world was waiting, holding its breath for what might happen next. Jake fell into step beside her, the warmth radiating off his body a comforting presence amid flickering doubts. She could sense his protective instincts, but she refused to let them overshadow her resolve to confront her anxieties. The dog, now quietly observing the world from her embrace, had awakened in her a desire to not merely react to life, but engage with it. "What are you going to name it?" Jake asked, his distraction revealing the lightness that had returned with their newfound companion. The question pulled Emily out of her reverie, and her mind blanked momentarily. Naming the dog felt like sealing a pact, a commitment to face whatever lay ahead. Something fitting, perhaps. Survivor? She chuckled, eliciting a sideways glance from Jake. Survivor? That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? Maybe it is, she conceded, wondering if that was yet another fear of being too dramatic, of embracing her bigger-than-life emotions. But it feels right. Look at him. He's overcome something to be here. Jake stayed silent, allowing her words to settle. She wondered what thoughts were spinning in his mind, if he too felt the weight of possible futures resting on their shoulders. Back at the car, she gently set the dog down, allowing him to sniff around the vehicle. The air was thick with anticipation, and she felt compelled to explore that further. "Do you think I can really do this?" she half asked, half convinced of the answer. Without hesitation, Jake responded, "You've already shown you can face uncertainty. Taking on a dog is just the first step. Remember, you want to embrace the process." His belief in her lit a spark, igniting courage that had been timidly smoldering within. Could this really be part of the journey? An opportunity to cultivate a nurturing spirit, to build something, even if it was just a bond with a stray dog? As they drove back toward town, the road stretched before them, and a resolve to infuse her life with purpose began to crystallize. Figuring out how to create a safe space for the dog mirrored her own desire to establish a home for her unborn child. "Should we head to the vet?" she asked, noting the faint signs of dirt and wear in the dog's coat. "This little guy deserves a checkup." "Sounds good," Jake replied, visibly impressed by her initiative. "I can handle it if you want to focus on something else." "No, I want to be part of this. I need to be part of this." At that moment, she realized it wasn't just about preparing for motherhood. It was also about reclaiming her autonomy, an act that felt both daunting and liberating. With every decision, from naming a dog to planning the logistics of caring for it, she was reaffirming her capability. Time would reveal the intricacies of motherhood, but Emily was no longer content to passively await it. She was actively engaging, ready to cultivate her instincts, her nurturing abilities. The vet visit ended up being a whirlwind of emotions, surprises, and responsibilities. As she wrestled with the weight of potential tasks ahead, feeding, training, loving, each challenge became a thread weaving that delicate tapestry of motherhood. Yet, like every good adventure, something unpredictable appeared just as she started to feel grounded. An unexpected message pinged on her phone. A text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's me. Hope the woods treated you well. Can we talk?" A knot twisted in her stomach. It was him, Jason, her ex from years past. The one connection she had hoped would remain buried. Would this rekindle doubts she had fought so hard to confront? Or could it serve as another lesson in embracing her evolving identity? As Emily stared at the screen, her heart raced, a sharp reminder that the journey of self-discovery was rarely linear. What would confronting Jason reveal about her past, and how might it affect the future she was so determined to carve? The script of her life seemed ready to shift yet again, inviting chaos into her newfound order. Emily stared at the blinking cursor on her phone, her heart pounding in her chest. Jason's message loomed large, a ghost from her past, casting an unsettling shadow on her freshly brightened future. She could almost feel the weight of old memories pressing against her as she contemplated her response. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself. The dog, Survivor, now curled up comfortably in her lap, was a reminder of resilience, of new beginnings. Yet, as comforting as that thought might be, the fear of revisiting the past gnawed at her. Could she pull from the strength she had just begun to harness? She shoved the phone into her pocket, determined not to let it distract her further. Focusing on the sleek lines of the road ahead, she committed to her immediate goal, securing the dog's health and happiness. What could be more affirming than establishing a safe, nurturing environment for both Survivor and herself? The vet clinic smelled of antiseptic and soft barks filled the waiting area, creating an atmosphere that felt strangely safe. With every tick of the clock, however, Emily felt the unease of Jason's message simmering just beneath the surface. "Everything okay?" Jake asked, sensing her distraction as they sat side by side. "Yeah, I got a text from Jason," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake's expression shifted, but hesitated before he spoke. "You know you don't have to respond right away. You control the pace." The grounding force in his words reminded her of the resolution that had emerged on their drive. Taking control of her narrative was paramount. With every step she took today, she dismantled the anxiety that had previously held her hostage. Today wasn't about Jason. It was about her, her choices, her new family, a dog, and a baby on the way. After the consultation, they returned home, Survivor nestled snugly in a box that would double as his bed. With a surge of purpose, Emily set about organizing her space, clearing clutter to usher in freshness and light. She felt a wave of exhilaration as she charted her domestic landscape, each decision reflecting her intent to create a life filled with love and responsibility. But the momentary calm was abruptly interrupted when her phone buzzed again with another message from Jason, this time more demanding. "I need to see you. We need to talk about what happened." The knot in her stomach tightened once more. Hadn't she come so far? Wasn't this new chapter meant to be one of healing and growth? The rising swell of frustration met her burgeoning confidence in a tense standoff. Could confronting Jason actually serve as a turning point in her journey? With determination, she set the phone down. The deliberation felt heavy. Between establishing a life with Survivor and navigating the complexities of motherhood, did she still have the energy to tackle this specter of her past? Her gaze fell on the dog. The trust in his eyes stirred something inside her, a flicker of readiness that was becoming difficult to ignore. If caring for Survivor provided clarity, then perhaps facing Jason could usher in a profound revelation about her history. The phone buzzed again insistently, jolting her from reflection. For a moment, she hesitated, contemplating how far she was willing to go to reclaim her autonomy. What if responding to Jason was her way of proving her strength? And what if confronting him revealed a side of herself she had long buried? She clenched her fists, heart racing. The time had come. As Emily stood at the crossroads, torn between her past and the future she was crafting, she realized the weight of her next decision would not only define her relationship with Jason, but also illuminate her growth. Did she dare to open that door once again? And what awaited her on the other side? Emily dropped her phone onto the sofa, swaying slightly as she felt the grounding presence of Survivor nestled against her. The pup looked up at her with his trusting eyes, and she felt a warmth radiating from within. Today had been full of meaningful choices, but she sensed another pivotal moment looming ahead. As she gathered her thoughts, she recognized the urgency of confronting her past, yet an unsettling anxiety still lingered. She leaned against the kitchen counter, half-formed plans swimming through her mind. Reorganizing her living space had felt empowering, but facing Jason would require a different kind of strength. What if he came armed with the same persuasive words he'd used in the past? But then again, what if she could wield that conversation as a tool to reclaim her narrative? Each time she shaded her space in vibrant colors or selected pieces of furniture that felt incomplete without her personal touch, she marked another layer of autonomy. Perhaps it was time to manifest that growth in confrontation. "Let's do this," she muttered to herself, knowing she had to approach this issue on her terms. She picked up her phone, taking a steadying breath before typing out a response. "Fine, let's meet." As she pressed send, adrenaline surged through her veins. Whether or not Jason had thought she would be easy to manipulate again was irrelevant. Emily was not the same girl who had once cowered under the weight of his scrutiny. Would he recognize the changes in her, or would he merely see the old Emily? In the following hours, she absorbed herself in projects around the house. She scrubbed countertops, rearranged knickknacks, and prepared a space for the baby. Each task filled her with a sense of accomplishment, a reminder that she was capable of handling all aspects of her new life. Here, she was building a nurturing environment, one that stood in stark contrast to the troubling memories associated with Jason. She immersed herself deeper into the act of creating a sanctuary, a space that was unequivocally hers. But as night fell and shadows cast by the living room light grew long, she couldn't shake the thoughts swirling in her mind, both heavy burdens and the flights of empowerment. Would her confidence hold? Had she truly changed, or was she putting on an elaborate facade? What awaited her at the coffee shop where they agreed to meet tomorrow? What would happen when past grievances met newfound strength? She looked at Survivor, who had taken a resident position beside her as if offering silent support. "You and me, huh?" she whispered, half expecting a response. In the quiet of her own home, she built layers of resolve, compiling small reminders of her worth and capability. Laying out her hopes and dreams in front of her like tangible objects, they took form. The love she wanted for her baby, the joy she craved with Survivor by her side, and the commitment to never again diminish herself for someone else's agenda. While she drifted into sleep that night, Emily contemplated her upcoming meeting. She felt her heart race at the thought of seeing Jason again, wondering if this would be the closure she had yearned for, or yet another chapter filled with unresolved tension. As dawn broke, a quiet anxiousness settled inside her. She was ready for clarity. She would face whatever came her way, not just for herself, but for the family she was committed to building. But when her phone buzzed with a new message, and the screen lit up with a name she hadn't expected, Emily's resolve faced an unforeseen test. How would she navigate this unexpected turn, and what truth would it unveil? Emily woke with the first light of dawn filtering through her window, the soft glow mingling with the quiet determination blooming inside her. Today was pivotal. Today, she would face Jason and take the final step in reclaiming her narrative. She glanced over at Survivor, sprawled languidly across his makeshift bed, his presence a comforting reminder of how far she had come. As she prepared for their meeting, each movement felt deliberate, each brush of her hair, each fit of her clothes, a testament to the woman she had grown into. Gone were the days of insecurity, of doubt fluttering around like a persistent shadow. She was no longer merely reflecting the expectations of others, she was crafting her identity. After a quick breakfast, she glanced at her phone, hesitating momentarily as she saw Jason's name flash across the screen again. A knot twisted in her stomach. The complexity of her feelings tangled within her chest, but she refused to succumb to fear. The time for chaos and old patterns was over. Today was an opportunity for closure, a final chapter, distinctly her own. Arriving at the coffee shop, Emily took a deep breath, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling her senses. The familiar buzz of conversation surrounded her, grounding her as she prepared to navigate the emotions that lay ahead. Her phone vibrated in her pocket, and she didn't waste any time. She stepped into the shop, resolute. The moment her eyes found Jason, her heart shifted uneasily. He sat with an air of confidence that had once turned her knees to jelly. Today felt different. Today, she wouldn't yield her strength to him. As she approached, the weight of past grievances momentarily clouded her vision, but she pushed through. This was about more than him and her. This was about growing into who she was meant to be. "Emily," Jason greeted, a familiar mix of charm lacing his words. Yet, beneath that charm was an undercurrent of desperation. She could sense it, like a visceral reminder of the many times he swayed her with sweet-trodden words. "Jason," she replied, her tone clear and firm as she took a seat across from him. A small part of her felt relief at being visible again, the confrontation not merely a chance to delve into the past, but a doorway into her strength moving forward. "Thanks for meeting me," he started, his eyes scanning her face as if searching for cracks or vulnerabilities. She met his gaze, unwavering. "I thought the time had come. You've crossed my mind often, but I need you to know I'm not the same person I was back then." A flicker of surprise flitted across his features, but he quickly masked it. "I didn't think you would be." We both grow, right? His words felt loaded with tension. Yes, but some growth comes from confronting our past, she replied, her voice steady. The weight of her own revelations pulsed through her words, each syllable infused with purpose. I'm here today because I recognize that in order to build my future, I can't let the ghosts of our relationship continue to haunt my present. His pause stretched, the silence between them charged with meaning. Emily's pulse quickened, yet she felt anchored, a force of resilience coursing through her. This was her moment of power. Emily, you know I've changed too, he stated, attempting to appeal to the connections they once shared. You can't expect me to just accept the past without a conversation. We need closure. Closure? She tilted her head, planting herself deeper in the moment. Closure implies there's something justifiable to reconcile, but there isn't. I built walls around my heart out of fear, and now I'm tearing them down, ready to let something real flourish. His expression shifted, disbelief turning into something else, perhaps awareness. But what about us? What about us? She shot back, the question striking with clarity. We were two wounded figures, each crafting a narrative that rarely aligned with who we really are. I need to redefine my story for myself and my child. The hardened lines of his face began to soften, and Emily recognized that perhaps this conversation was illuminating something deeper within him too. The unknown that loomed over both of them could potentially pave the way for healing if approached with honesty. I never meant to hurt you, Jason finally admitted, his voice laced with vulnerability. Realization settled within the air between them, thickening it with possibility. I understand that now, but I won't fool myself into thinking we can return to what we shared. Her voice was calm but fierce, a declaration of her newfound autonomy. You're a part of my past, but my future is defined by the choices I make today. In that moment, Emily felt the truth of her convictions settle within her bones. Around her, the coffee shop buzzed on, echoing life and potential, but within her, a transformation had begun to crystallize. She had taken on the weight of her past, unearthing the implications of her choices, and recognizing she held not just the power of her decisions, but also the curation of her future. Jason studied her, and for the first time, she saw the flicker of understanding grow in his eyes. So, what's next for you? He asked, slowly allowing a semblance of respect into his tone. She smiled, the buoyancy of hope dancing through her. I'm building a home for my child, a life filled with love, trust, and authenticity. It's a journey, and I can't afford to let anyone stand in the way of that, not even you. Her words reverberated in the air, a bookend to their chapter intertwined. As she stood to leave, she felt liberated, the emotional weight of their history lifting like a fog. Each step away from that table echoed her commitment to herself and her future. Emily stepped into the sunlight, the warmth enveloping her like a promise. Clutching her phone, she shot a quick message to Jake. Meeting went well. I'm ready to embrace everything ahead. This time, when she smiled, it felt whole, reflective of the woman she was becoming, the life she was building, and the fierce independence she would no longer apologize for embracing. As she drove home with Survivor eagerly resting at her feet, she understood this was merely a beginning. The journey would be filled with challenges, but they would be hers to navigate. She was learning to embrace what lay ahead, fortified by strength, resilience, and a connection all her own. Finally, she was ready to conquer whatever came next. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voices matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now, and don't wait even one more second to share. Join the journey of personal overcoming stories. This is just the beginning.